ENTJs are logical and pragmatic decision makers who are keenly aware of the theoretical implications of their actions and ideas. They typically have a thorough understanding of the facts and parameters involved in their decisions, as well as the academic or scientific research that pertains to their fields of expertise. ENTJs tend to be confident and effective working with empirical information and complicated systems. Their primary interest lies in reorganizing, manipulating, and optimizing the vast troves of objective knowledge that society has hitherto produced in order to formulate solid conclusions and plans of actions that can be used to propel people and organizations towards ever greater goals. Over time, these interests tend to grow into a veritable arsenal of impartial expert knowledge that the ENTJ can use to operate effectively in the world. As natural data crunchers, ENTJs are frequently skilled at predicting and working out the consequences of a given plan of action. In doing so, they tend to be extremely methodical and to base their assertions on impersonal and impartially verified data, and they are typically tremendously objective when it comes to evaluating the merits of the various options and plans that are currently in play. ENTJs rarely play favorites, and they rarely become emotionally attached to one plan of action, the way INTJs sometimes do. Instead, an ENTJ will typically allow every sensible plan to have its day in court by subjecting it to the same criteria as every other plan, and then they will put their support behind whatever plan seems best according to the data. Of the 16 types described in Jung's typology, the ENTJ is perhaps the most objective and impersonal of them all. Younger ENTJs may therefore sometimes struggle to understand how others can object to a conclusion that makes sense objectively without offering any kind of analytical or data-driven pushback. ENTJs are not naturally attuned to the more emotional or personally idiosyncratic reasons that others may have for opposing a plan, and they can sometimes get frustrated and annoyed, and perhaps even a bit dictatorial, if others fail to couch their opposition to the ENTJ's ideas in logical terms. As they mature, ENTJs have often been observed to grow a bit more lenient and mellow in these kinds of situations. Not so much because they abandon their logical approach, but because they come to factor in human resistance as a cost of doing business. That being said, however, most ENTJs will always be keenly aware of the prospective consequences and efficiency of a given course of action, and it will often be exceedingly difficult to dissuade them or lead them off course when they have set their sights on an objective which they are convinced is worthwhile. Mature ENTJs are often very good at generating a multitude of possible analyses and listing numerous possible outcomes or conclusions that could be derived from a particular premise. But they rarely find much pleasure or gratification in engaging with this kind of thinking unless in service of some larger goal, or in order to help someone they care about. Because they are so focused on honing their rigorous methodology and understanding expert opinions and scientific investigations of their areas of interest, ENTJs tend to resist evaluating their knowledge in a personalized way or occupying themselves with theoretical questions that have very little practical application and may very easily seem like theory for theory's sake. In their minds, it is often less important whether something makes sense on the human or personal level, so long as it is obviously true within the scientific and data-driven frames of reference that the ENTJ has set up for themselves and made the pivot point of their logical thinking. However, ENTJs who are sufficiently motivated can frequently develop themselves in these areas and become very skilled at performing these kinds of analyses. And ENTJs who allow themselves to do so will generally find these alternative ways of evaluation very useful when faced with contradictory or competing information from their normal spheres of reference. ENTJs generally have a hard time judging interpersonal interactions on the basis of societal expectations of propriety and custom, and they may at times find themselves unintentionally giving offense. They cannot help but see and state the truth that their analysis of the data suggests, even if others may find that truth inconvenient and unpleasant. Although they may, with much determination, become more receptive to the emotions and peculiar beliefs of others, it is not their natural strength. In general, they prefer to convince others using facts and evidence to set out a case so clear and cogent that others cannot help but come to the same conclusions. With their ability to peruse expert knowledge in depth and to come up with solid data-driven solutions to tackle complex problems, ENTJs are ideally suited for positions of managerial and executive responsibility, and even when they are not in a formal position of authority, they thrive when they are given the freedom to reorganize and reform the matters around them to ensure greater efficiency as well as a greater outcome for everyone involved.